Sheffield United, they lost for the third time in a row. It's after Plymouth came from a goal down to beat them 2-1 at home park. 3 word reviews for Plymouth. Casey says not dead yet. Johnny says couldn't, could we? Looker says great escapes on. Matt on our Patreon says Chris Wilder tears. For Sheffield United, Chris says blown effing promotion. Bournemouth says words fail me. Plymouth were a goal down in the 80th minute. They got one back, and then 88th minute, up pops Mohamed Tajani. Wow. Wow, oh wow. What a crazy result, and what a big moment it could be at the top and bottom in the grand scheme of this championship season, Justin.
You say what a big moment. It is a big moment. It's a significant one, isn't it? It's absolutely mammoth. When you consider the fact that obviously Plymouth get the goal that can define the bottom of the table, pulls them right back into the battle, it almost knocks Sheffield United out of the automatic promotion race, barring a point here or there. It's absolutely seismic, that that winner from Plymouth. Absolutely seismic. As I say, at the bottom and the top, it's an incredible turnaround, and exactly the reason why the championship is the championship. Oh,
yeah, those noises pretty much sum everything up quite nicely, actually, because this is the drama that we bloody love, isn't it? And look, Sheffield United went ahead through a lovely finish by Jessa and Raksaki, and from that point onwards, you just sort of expected Sheffield United to get the job done. Plymouth weren't offering a huge amount of threat. Mind you, neither are Sheffield United for that matter. Then Ryan Hardy hit the bar for Plymouth, and you're like, oh, okay. Bit of a warning shot there for Sheffield United. They need to get this job done. And then not long afterwards, Plymouth equalised, and you were like, wow, okay, that's a significant goal. But then Tyrese Campbell, a few minutes later, was clean through on goal for Sheffield United. He misses, and then Plymouth goes straight up the other end and score the winner. A crazy, crazy game. Shows the fine margins that we see at this stage of the season in the Championship. And yeah, just shows what a crazy moment this was in the grand scheme of this season. And to top it all off, we got scenes we absolutely love to pretend we don't want to see, with Chris Wilder confronting 2 celebrating Plymouth players, and then it all kicks off in the tunnel, Justin. It's great stuff.
It's beautiful, isn't it? I don't know why Sky have to say, oh, we don't want to see this, do we? You know the audience does. This is what we're paying for. This is what we tune in for. All right, yes, we want to see teams play football, but this is the extra value that certainly would make me pay more for a Sky subscription. If you advertise this at the end of the season when you're trying to get new subscribers for the next season, they'll come in the troves. But I think all that moment does at the end of the game just personifies the emotion that's involved. Obviously, Sheffield United dropping their arses as hard as they did. Because let's be honest, I don't think I've seen a heads gone as heavy as this for a long time in the Championship. We've seen bottlings, but this is a proper heads gone from Wilder and Sheffield United. And then you mix that with the emotion of Plymouth getting a result that really could kick them forwards. I'm not surprised it kicked off in the tunnel. It doesn't help that the tunnel's right by the away stand as well, which is just a beautiful melodrama of what's going on.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely spot on, Justin. I think things like Chris Wilder starting fights with opposition players, celebrating, shows that the pressure's got to him and his players. How else can you explain a team being top of the league literally 9 days ago, winning 8 from 10, and then losing 3 games in a row to Oxford, Millwall and Plymouth in a week, while only scoring a single goal in that time? We talk about Leeds falling apart. I don't think Leeds ever had anything like this where they've collapsed as quickly. And unfortunately, when a team does let the pressure get to them like this, the fingers have to be pointed at the manager. We've given Chris Wilder a hell of a lot of praise this season for the job he's done, deservedly. But he has, on so many occasions in the past, been guilty of letting his emotions get the better of him. And when it's come to this final straight, his team have folded, and signs of him, scrapping with players after games, or giving them a bit of a telling off in this case, is a sign of that.
It's a good point to raise. And I think there's a fine line between being sort of quite funny and quirky and passionate to not handling the pressure very well. Obviously, Wilder wears his heart on his sleeve, and you've got to love that about him. You really, really do. But when you mix it with the comments he made after the Oxford defeat regarding the fans sort of criticising the players, and then it's an unchanged team against Millwall and it's a flat performance, it just screams pressure. And then you've got the team talk on the pitch at the end of the game. I just think it all has an adverse effect. And when you also throw into the factor that, we mentioned the warning signs that Plymouth were sending, obviously Ryan Hardy hitting the bar from a set piece, Musafu Bundu sending Jack Robinson for a hot dog. Jack Robinson should have had it was either a foul or a penalty given against him, by the way, for wrestling. I can't remember who it was, but he wrestled another player to the floor, which was absolutely a foul. But I think it was missed. But we're not witnessing any responses to these moments. We're not witnessing from a manager. We're not witnessing from the players. It screams pressure, and it screams you're folding under the pressure, to be blunt.
Yeah, and some may be listening to this thinking you can't blame the manager for this entirely. You've got to blame the players as well. But I completely disagree. The clue is in the name. Manager. His job is not just picking the team, choosing the tactics. He has to manage their emotions and keep them focused. And if he feels like a player is not, emotionally prepared for a game, take them out the firing line. Do anything like that. And it's become quite clear that these Sheffield United players have just not been able to cope with it. And that goes down to the manager being able to manage those emotions, which they quite clearly haven't done this past week. And a lot of Sheffield United fans are very frustrated about this as well. I've seen some even calling for Wilder to be sacked. Which seems a bit over the top, but the frustration is understandable when they've seen their team, who were in such a commanding position a little over a week ago, end up like this now. Because, as I say, Justin, 9 days ago, Sheffield United were top of the table. They were even 2 points clear, actually. But 3 losses later, they find themselves third and 5 points off the top 2 now. 5 points. And all of a sudden, Justin, the automatic promotion race, which looked like it might be going down to the wire, isn't looking so tight now.
No, it isn't. Yeah, it's a really good point to make. I would argue that the manner in which Sheffield United have dropped off is a real significant force in this push for the top 2, for the race for the top 2. I think what it does is exemplify the importance of these 3-game weeks, these 3 games in 7 days that we have, and how much of an impact it can have on this season. And Sheffield United have come out of it so bruised and battered that psychologically that it's going to have a huge impact. And like I said, we do joke about Leeds falling apart, when there's a first sign of a bit of a creak. But like I was alluding to earlier on, I think this is one of the biggest sort of head-gons that I've witnessed it in the Championship, because Sheffield United were in a commanding position. They weren't 10 points clear, but they were in control of the situation. And they had 3 fixtures in this game, in this 7 days, where they should have come out with it with 2 wins and a draw. That'd have been fine. That'd have been fair. You can't win every game. I think 1 win and a draw would have been it wouldn't have been great, but it would have been fine. 3 losses. 1 goal as well is really, really poor. And as I say, that's a big head's gone, and psychologically the damage that will do is monumental.
A 5-point gap with 4 games to go feels significant, doesn't it? Particularly when one of the teams ahead of them just doesn't lose. I've done the maths on this, Justin. If Burnley stay unbeaten, then they'll win a minimum of 92 points. And then Sheffield United would only be able to pick up a maximum of 93 points because those two play each other. And then, of course, there's Leeds as well, who we might be seeing finding their feet again. So it sort of feels like Sheffield United have violently spun out of control in the final lap here. Pretty much the only thing going for them is the fact they still have to play Burnley on Easter Monday. But it also means that Burnley and Leeds could be officially promoted if Scott Parker's men win that game on Easter Monday. I mean, Leeds are obviously loving life anyway because they know one of their 2 teams behind them is dropping points. In fact, those 2 would be all but there if they both win on Good Friday and Sheffield United lose because they have a much better goal difference. So not only have Sheffield United unravelled, so has the automatic promotion race, because unless the Blades go on a pretty mad run in these final 4 games now, it's looking very likely that everything will be sorted well before the final day.
It's a mad run, as well as Burnley and Leeds losing a couple of games. Now, Burnley have only lost 2 games this season. Leeds, yes, I know they've dropped points in recent weeks, but again, you're relying on a team that is still a very good team. Dropping points, it's just something they don't do on a regular. So Sheffield United, they've got to call in favours from other teams here if they've got any chance. And if you've gone from a position where you're 2 points clear to having to call in favours from opposition teams to beat your rivals, yeah, that's it's such a huge drop off. You can't even explain it.
Yeah, shout out to producer Finn, by the way, a big Sheffield United fan. Hasn't produced one of our episodes in a while, and his first one back in a long time is this one. So hope you're enjoying it, mate. We'll talk more about promotion shortly, but let's cast our gaze towards the bottom of the Championship, because Plymouth's win could have big ramifications down there as well, doesn't it? Because all of a sudden, Plymouth are level on points with Luton and just 3 points from safety. Now, it is worth saying they have a significantly poorer goal difference than any other side down there, so they're effectively 4 points from safety. But after repeatedly looking like they might be down and out, Plymouth have once again got a fighting chance, Justin.
Yeah, they have. It's incredible. I think Miro Muslic summed it up perfectly after the game, where he said the impossible is possible again. But I think this Plymouth performance, I loved it. I really did. I think it epitomised everything Plymouth have been providing since Muslic took over. First half, they were under it. They weren't great. Sheffield United did dominate in some parts, but they came out in the second half and the intensity shifted, stopped feeling sorry for themselves, and that level of respect they had for their opposition changed. It was gritty, they were quick on the transition, and they were a fucking nuisance as well. And they made it uncomfortable, Sheffield United, and you could see that. And they smelt a team that was waning, and they went for it. And yeah, as I say, I loved it. I loved it. The performance, the scenes at the end. It's what the Championship is all about.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you say there. And Plymouth do have a habit of pulling results out of their arses, don't they? And this was certainly one of those occasions. I think, if we're being honest, and I'd be surprised if any Plymouth fans disagree with me on this, 80% of the time, Plymouth are bad. 10% of the time, they're competent. And then the other 10%, you look at them and go, they're actually all right. And unfortunately, we haven't seen that final 10% too often this season, but it's made more appearances in the last month than it has any other 30-day period of the past season, in the league anyway, maybe not the FA Cup. But the reality of the situation is this. If Plymouth are going to stand any chance of staying up, they'll have to win at least 2 of their final 4 games, at the very least. So you'd say it's still very, very unlikely, particularly when 3 of those games are against sides in the top 8, including Leeds on the final day. But Plymouth have a chance. And as we say, they have a habit of pulling rabbits out of the hat. And as long as they've got a chance, that's all they would have asked for at this stage in the season, Justin.
Yeah, exactly. And I think when you consider how down and out it felt when Wayne Rooney was in charge, and how poor they were when Rooney was in charge, and the sort of the roller coaster it's been since Muslic has been in charge, I think them just being within a chance will give them the world of confidence just to keep going. And they've got nothing to lose going into games, because, as I say, there's a fairly significant gap for them to get out of it at this stage. They've just got to approach games with absolutely no fear and absolutely no respect for their opposition, because I think if they do that, the chances of staying up, I think, increases. There's got to be a carefree attitude almost. And I think probably one of the negatives you can argue with Muslic is they've been drilled into this mindset of defend, when actually if the leash is let go a little bit and they embrace the chaos that, for example, Mustafa Bunda does create for opposition, they can really lace gloves on whoever they play. It doesn't matter. I mean, we've seen it in the FA Cup against Liverpool and Man City, and we've seen it in the Championship on very few occasions. So they've got a chance, and it's exciting. It's really, really exciting, and the turnaround, I think, is still very remarkable.
We'll talk more about the relegation battle, of course, later on in the show. But let's stick with the automatic promotion race, Justin. And the team who remain top of the table is, of course, Leeds United. It's after a 2-1 win at home to Preston. 3-word reviews for Leeds. Luke says, drinking Wilder's tears. Browner says, thank you, Plymouth. Keanu says, up the Plymouth. Sam says, I love Plymouth. Yeah, there's a lot of Plymouth love coming from Yorkshire. Well, one part of Yorkshire anyway, obviously not the south part of Yorkshire. Unless Sheffield Wednesday have got something to say about it anyway. But yeah, an important win for Leeds United. But it's also significant because it has finally proved the lunchtime kickoff theory is a load of bollocks.
Shut up. It's not bollocks, because the lunchtime kickoff theory has been proven right, and it's stopped Leeds from having a clear run at promotion. But I did say in the preview episode that even a lunchtime kickoff would not stop a Leeds side beating a Preston team that looks like they've downed tools, to be honest. So, and the game was still an awkward one. We need to throw that into the mix. But this was a fully deserving 3 points for Leeds, because Preston were pretty much garbage.
What did I say to you not too long ago, Justin?
No. It's not.
Leeds' last four. Well, I think it's a bit more of a credible theory than what time the game kicks off, mate.
Have a word.
Leeds' last 4 lunchtime kickoffs at home, they've won 3 of them and drawn 1. So, as I've said previously, it's got nothing to do with lunchtime kickoffs. It's because of Leeds' issues that they've had away from home all season. That's with early kickoffs and any other kickoff that happens at any other time of day. So there you go. I'm glad we've put that to bed, and Justin will never mention it again. But on the game itself, this was pure domination from Leeds. It is astonishing that they only won 2-1. They really should have made this a lot more comfortable for themselves, shouldn't they, Justin?
Yeah, it should have been at least 4. I know Joel Pirra hit the woodwork from about 6 yards out. Joe Rodon and I think it was Gruev each missed a chance in the same sequence as well, where they easily could have both put the ball in the back of the net, but there was countless other chances that they didn't put them away. But I think this is the frustration with Leeds, and one thing that will make me continue to be a little bit nervous heading into the last few games of the season is that, you know, they always create chances. We know this, but they always give themselves a chance of winning a game, but they never give themselves a chance of winning the game comfortably by taking those opportunities that they create for themselves. And this game pretty much epitomised it. It was 2-1. It was poised. It was edged. I think with a team with a little bit more quality, like Swansea or anybody else, maybe could have punished Leeds here. Because they just have this wonderful habit of kicking themselves in the shin really hard, as we've witnessed over the past few weeks. So for me, yes, win is massive, absolutely massive, but there's still so many glaring problems I see. I mean, the goal they conceded was horrendous. It really, really was. They were so open. I think it was Jameson had acres of space in the middle, and then Kessler Hayden also had acres of space on the right-hand side to score. Not what you need to be doing when you're trying to keep it tight. So, yeah, it's a big 3 points, but it still makes me a little bit nervous.
I agree with you to an extent, Justin. I think up until that Middlesbrough game, the bit where Leeds were falling apart in quotation marks, they were genuinely playing really, really poorly. This was very, very good, but you're right. It is sort of a microcosm of what we've seen of Leeds at home on many occasions this season, which is them creating chance galore, but struggling to kill the game off. 9 times out of 10, they do get the job done, though, and they did that here. And it looked more like the Leeds of earlier this season, which is the main thing for me, because we all know about the wobble that they've been having. They were playing like a shadow of the side we've seen all season. This was more like it. They still couldn't kill off the game for love nor money, which is frustrating, and I'm sure, as we've said on many occasions this season, has added taken a few years off the lives of many Leeds fans because of the nerves and the stress that they've been put under. But they were so much better here, and that is the main thing for me. And this is how it stands now for Leeds. They're top of the table on goal difference, level with Burnley, 5 points clear of Sheffield United. They just need 8 points from their final 4 games to officially gain promotion, although 7 points will mean they're all but there because of their goal difference. They probably won't even need that many because Burnley and Sheffield United are, of course, playing each other. Leeds have got Oxford, Stoke, Bristol City and Plymouth remaining. So, surely they can't mess this up, Justin. Surely even Leeds, being at their most Leedsy, can't mess this up.
They've been out-blipped, haven't they, by Sheffield United? You know, I think the difference in Daniel Farke and Chris Wilder here, I think, has been the key thing. Is Daniel Farke has been remarkably calm and remarkably cool, and he's made a big decision in, for example, dropping Ilian Meslier for Carl Darlow. He's made that big decision, and it's paid off because, you know, Carl Darlow was relatively quiet, had one decent save to make, which the Leeds account did tweet or did post. I did see, which just seemed a bit, you know, it was a routine save. But he's been remarkably cool, almost annoyingly calm Like, if the lift's falling and no one's sort of, and Daniel Farke's in that lift and he's not sort of losing his head a little bit. He's sort of going, why? Why aren't you a little bit stressed about this? But he's been calm and he's come out the other end. Whereas Chris Wilder, as we've spoken about, has not been calm. He's been the opposite. And I think what we've seen now is he's come through the other end of that almost internal battle with themselves. And they come out the other end and they've got 3 points here and they can take that confidence going into their next game.
Yeah, well, this time last week it was all looking very nervy, wasn't it? So what a difference a week makes. And I think you are right, Justin. I think they have been massively helped by Sheffield United kind of almost taking the pressure off them in a way. But it's for Leeds, it's kind of like everything's just parted for them and left them with virtually an open goal. But yeah, even Leeds at their most falling aparty surely have to go up from here, because it would take a pretty catastrophic set of results for them to mess this up now, because even a win and 2 draws might be enough with Sheffield United still having to go to Burnley. Leeds have been dealt a blow because Pascal Struijk's been ruled out for the season, but the Preston game shows that they're more than capable of taking a blow like that and continuing onwards. So yeah, promotion a fingertip away. Leeds fans, you just need to make sure you keep your nerve for these final 4 games.
Hopefully not a Mezze fingertip.
yeah, spot on. Oh, God. And the same can be said about the other side in the top 2, Justin. Just a fingertip away for Burnley, of course. They beat Norwich City 2-1 on Friday night. Burnley had 8 shots, just 2 on target, and they scored from both of them, one of which was significantly deflected. Classic Burnley, Justin.
Why? You are painfully cynical. Painfully cynical. They pressed Norwich into those mistakes. Jadon Anthony's goal, for example, was a deflected one. And yeah, there's a bit of luck there. But the press and the aggressiveness that they pinned Norwich back, and they made it so hard for them to get out of. So yes, they might have scored 2 goals and then sort of shut up shop and said to Norwich, okay, you can just come at us now. That was probably an element of that. But I think overall, it's just about getting 3 points. That's it.
Yeah, of course it is. And I'm not disagreeing with anything you say there, Justin. It is just about getting 3 points, and Burnley just did it in a very Burnley way. And as long as they get promoted, Scott Parker doesn't care about anything else, and that's fine. Let's look at how things are going then with their promotion cause, Justin, because like Leeds, they have taken a large step closer toward promotion. And the action plan is virtually the same for them, isn't it? 8 points needed from their final 4 games to officially gain promotion for Burnley, although they also have a much better goal difference than Sheffield United. So 7 will be enough, 7 points that is. But because Burnley are facing Sheffield United, that does make it somewhat more complicated. However, you'll be glad to know, Justin, I've done the mathematical gymnastics on this, and this is how it looks. If Burnley beat Watford on Good Friday, they will secure promotion against Sheffield United on Easter Monday with a win. If they were to draw with Sheffield United after beating Watford, they would effectively need just 1 point from their final 2 games. So looking very good for Burnley. If they fail to beat Watford, then that opens up a whole can of worms and makes that game on Easter Monday absolutely gigantic, assuming Sheffield United beat Cardiff. The bottom line is, though, Burnley just need to carry on not losing, and that might very well be enough.
But there's something they're very good at, is not losing football matches, and it's put them in a position that has I know you mentioned about the swagger, and it is a good point. They do win games with the least amount of swagger going, and it's got them in this position now where they can just literally not lose and still win promotion, which I still think it's a huge positive because promotion is promotion. But I think the mathematical scenario they've put themselves in by just being very good at keeping opposition out, I think, is a remarkable feat this season, and probably something that we won't witness very often, if again. So maybe we have to allow it as one of the first to be done. It's quite incredible, but yeah, this position they put themselves in is they're in the driving seat, and I think in terms of when pressure builds out of Leeds and Sheffield United, Burnley are probably the only team who have not completely folded under any pressure this season so far. Can I see it happening with 4 games to go? No. They might draw more games than they win between now and the end of the season, but that's enough. That's enough for Burnley. So, yeah, incredible position. And I do feel Scott Parker deserves credit for that.
Let's go to how our picks did in Friday's preview show, brought to you by SBK, then Justin, because our bet builder was on Burnley versus Norwich, and a £10 stake was due to return £275. Now, we had Josh Sargent have a shot on target. He didn't start, so that selection would have been voided in the bet builder. We had both teams to score, which of course came in, Burnley to win, which also came in, and CJ Egan-Riley to be carded, which was unfortunately not a winner. So we didn't have any luck in our bet builder for that game. But onto our multiple, where a £10 stake was due to return £95. We had Burnley to win, of course, a winner. Leeds, another winner. Millwall, also a winner. And then Sheffield United. Chris Wilder, you have not only cost yourselves promotion, but more importantly, you have cost the second tier featured accumulator, you silly man.
Yeah, bloody drink your tears this weekend, mate. God. Salty human being.
Oh, I'm salty after that because I checked my phone at about 80 minutes in. I was like, hang on a minute, we're winning the accumulator here. And then it all went to pot very, very quickly. So no luck for us there, but we'll be back with our next round of picks in Thursday's preview show brought to you by SBK. We'll be doing it on Thursday instead because we'll be looking ahead to the Good Friday round of fixtures, ladies and gents. We look forward to that. But we'll have a quick break, Justin. After that, we'll go through the relegation battle and the playoff race in the Championship. Welcome back to the Second Tier Podcast, and it's now time for us to reveal the winner of our latest edition of Jameson's Weekend Hero, because every single week we're asking you to nominate a fellow Championship fan that you believe deserves recognition. Now, it could be someone who drove you to a recent away day, or it could be a friend or a relative who got you into supporting your club in the first place. Whatever it is, we want to find out. So to nominate your Jameson Weekend Hero from this weekend, send us a voice note right now on WhatsApp explaining your nomination. The number is in the show notes, and of course, if we pick you, you'll win a bottle of Jameson to share with your winner. Also, onto this weekend's hero, who is from Ben, who wanted to nominate Dennis.
Now then, gents, I would like to nominate my Uncle Dennis for the weekend hero. A bit of background on Uncle Dennis. He's turning 95 on the 5th of April, but he didn't actually start coming to Hull City games with us until he was 80. He's lived the majority of his life as a Leeds fan, but we forgive him for that because when he turned 80, he decided he wanted to spend some time with his nephews and go see some live football. So he started coming to Hull City games, and he's been there with us through 2 promotions, the FA Cup semi-final and final, the playoff final against Sheffield Wednesday, and the relegation to League One, which we don't talk about. He's now a fully converted Hull City fan and cheers us on whenever we play Leeds. The best thing, though, is that despite being nearly 95, he still insists on driving us to any home games we can get to. He can't walk too well anymore, but he always says that driving is one of the things that he can do and he wants to do for us. It's just a testament to the man, really, that he wants to make those memories, and football just wouldn't be the same without him. Last thing I'll say is that he absolutely loves the Jamesons.
Of course he does. Justin, that is absolutely unbelievable. I can't believe that. 95 and he's still going to the football.
Yeah, 95. Still driving to the games, still going to the games. I think the fact that he's been going to Hull since, the almost the really good times for the club as well. He's seen the really good stuff. I know there was a drop into
Glory
the bottom.
Hunter.
Yeah, Uncle Dennis is a Glory supporter, and he's gone from Leeds to Hull. Proper Glory supporter there. But yeah, I love that. That is proper wholesome, that is.
That's unbelievable. I think Dennis is my hero, let alone the weekend's hero. Driving at 95, still going to games. That's what I want to be doing.
I think being able to withstand going to football in your 90s and being disappointed coming away from football and still going week after week in your 90s is an incredible thing. I could not do that with Derby at all.
What a bloke. What a legend. An absolute legend and a weekend hero, in fact. So let's raise a glass of Jameson Ginger and Lime to Dennis. And happy birthday for last week, actually. I've been informed that it was his birthday last week. So, Dennis, this is for you, mate. We can now have kind of a swig of Jameson to honour this moment. Oh, and it's a good thing that he is a big fan of Jameson because he will be getting a bottle of Jameson to his door. So if you also want a bottle of Jameson, then all you need to do to become a Jameson Weekend Hero is send us a voice note right now on WhatsApp. It just needs to be about a minute long. The number is in the show notes, and you could be next week's winner. You must be over 18 to enter, UK only, and T's and C's apply. Right, let's talk about some more of the action from across the Championship this past weekend, Justin. And we'll go on to a relegation battle because there was a big game down there. An own goal by Will Fish in the 85th minute saw Cardiff City lose 1-0 at home to Stoke in a big 6-pointer. 3-word reviews for Stoke. Lewis says, that will do. Nick on our Patreon says, nerve-wracking, nearly there. For Cardiff, CCFCTM says, shit. Yeah, sounds about right. Just 5 minutes before that own goal for Stoke, Cardiff missed an absolute sitter through Isaac Davis, possibly even a contender for miss of the season. Then Stoke get a long throw, bounces around a bit, clearly strikes a Stoke player's arm before eventually going in for an own goal. Just pretty clear the footballing gods weren't on Cardiff's side for this one. And we've spoken about it a few times at this stage around this season, Justin, about how some results just feel significant in the grand scheme of things. This feels like a significant moment for Cardiff City.
Yeah, results, the manner of the defeat as well. It feels absolutely huge and definitely significant. And when you compare it to it being a result against a fellow rival at the bottom of the table, and where I don't think Cardiff overly tested Stoke other than that huge chance from Isaac Davis. Yeah, this is a huge moment for the club and a real crossroads point for them because they've got a manager who it feels like the fans have completely sort of left, if you like. They're not behind him. Probably haven't been behind him for a while, but I think now we're starting to get that vocalised. It's a position that they can only really blame on themselves. And the manner of this defeat, where again another goalless game for Cardiff against a relegation rival. It's a proper gut punch.
Yeah, if that Davis chance goes in and Cardiff won, they would have climbed up 2 places and, more importantly, out of the relegation zone. But the big thing here is, Justin, lads, it's Stoke. Which it just feels applicable here because they've been in a very similar position to Cardiff all season, haven't they? If you're not getting a result against them at home with 4 games to go, then you're in big trouble. And it's got to be said, it's looking fairly ominous now for Cardiff City, isn't it? 4 games to go. Just a point from safety may not seem that bad, but their goal difference is significantly worse than the 2 teams above them, Derby and Hull. So it's more like 2 points from safety. You also have to consider, though, their next game is away at Sheffield United. Yes, Sheffield United are having a wobble, but still one of the games you would least like to have next. Meanwhile, Derby are at home to Luton on Good Friday. Hull have a game in hand. So it's not looking good, Justin.
Yeah. You raise a good point about coming up against Sheffield United because, yes, they are on a 3-game losing streak. But if, again, the Plymouth game feels like such a big one that the next one becomes a must-win. And we said that about Leeds going into the weekend just gone. These must-win games become significantly bigger. And I think when you're coming up against opposition who are sort of reeling a lot, and I know Cardiff are as well, but not as probably as much as Sheffield United are, you're going to get kicked around a little bit. And they are obviously relying on opposition sort of dropping points, but obviously it does exemplify how big the game Luton Derby is. But Cardiff have sunk into this position all by themselves. They were relatively in a decent position. Their squad's, I think, capable of competing higher up the table, but they don't. They go through spells where they look very creative, then they go through spells where they look terribly, like they can't create anything. It's remarkable. It's absolutely remarkable. And then the goals they concede are so avoidable and poor as well. They concede too much ground to opposition in games, and yeah, unfortunately, this is the result of it. It's a club that's been sleepwalking into this position, and it's probably only taken up until the last couple of weeks for them to realise, oh shit, we could actually get relegated here.
Yeah, they definitely could. And it's getting to a stage for them now where they need wins. Draws aren't really much use to them at this stage. And the issue is, this is a Cardiff side who have found wins really hard to come by this season. It's just 5 wins in 29 now for them. No team has won fewer games than them since Omar Ritza was given the job on a permanent basis. I put that stat out on Twitter earlier today, Justin, and the number of Cardiff fans I saw respond back to me saying, we need to get rid of him now. It was a mistake giving him in the job in the first place, but we now need to change things. because they've just completely lost faith in him, as you were alluding to earlier on, and the boos after that loss to Stoke pretty much show that as well. It is worth mentioning Derby and Hull do have to play each other, which may help Cardiff in these final 4 games, but it is increasingly looking like a mountain to climb for them, and Omar Ritza even admitted that after this result. However, he's also admitted he's unsure whether he'll be allowed to see out the season, and he's saying that with only 4 games left, Justin. Having said that, it wouldn't be a huge surprise to me if Cardiff decided to press the emergency button for these remaining games and get rid of him and get someone else in.
When your manager's saying this with 4 games to go, oh my God.
Yeah, scary.
I'm actually gobsmacked. I really, really am. There's not a lot I can really say that's made me speechless on this podcast in a few years, but when the manager's saying with 4 games to go and you're third from bottom, and he's saying, I don't know if I'll be allowed to see out the season. God help you, Cardiff. Sorry. You're bored shit. Your manager's not very good. Your players got no confidence. They're better than what they are.
And they're not getting much confidence either, and the manager is saying, I might get sacked with 4 games to go, is it?
Honestly, that is genuinely one of the most dumbfounding things I've heard in Championship football. This is a man who does not have the experience to deal with this situation. It's been shown since he started. And I know we praised him when he first came in because he won a lot of bloody games. That's a difficult thing to do in a Championship. But it's been clear from the moment he was given the job permanently, he's not experienced enough. And that counts a hell of a lot, especially in the situation they're in now. Look at Man Bloomfield struggling. Good coach, good background, success in the lower leagues. Not got the management history of battling relegation. And we're seeing your problems there as well. Omar Ritza's a small percentage of that, and he's doing worse.
Yeah. Well, it would be interesting to see if Cardiff do press the emergency button, and if they do, then I'm sure there's a man down in Cornwall who's waiting patiently next to his phone.
He was at QPR. He was at QPR as a guest, so he's obviously doing. He's not obviously caught in the QPR job, but he's doing the rounds.
Sharon, we're going to South Wales for 4 weeks.
It's a holiday. It's a holiday.
Justin, what a huge result for Stoke City this is. And all of a sudden, they find themselves 5 points clear with 4 games to go. And I can't believe I'm saying this. It feels like they might just be there in terms of safety, might they?
They might be, and I have to tell you what, I'm really, really, really impressed with Mark Robbins and the turnaround since the international break. Performances haven't been amazing, but they are better. Opposition are finding less opportunities, are finding less space, despite that Isaac Davis chant, of course. And obviously Stoke are going forwards, and there's a tad more threat. Game management is better as well. So Robbins deserves a hell of a lot of credit because post and pre-international break, they're so different. They look more like a functioning side and not like a group of individuals. Bit of a cliche there, but it's genuinely true. This Stoke team, there's more organisation about them. They've conceded 11 goals in 6 games prior to the March international break. Conceded just 3 goals in 4 games since then. That's a big turnaround. And I say keeping opposition out is giving them a platform to really, really go and express themselves a little bit and get results. And that's all Stoke need is results.
Well, I did say last week that I think 48 points might be enough, and Stoke are now on 47. So if they do get to 48, then you're asking Cardiff to get 6 points from their remaining 4. And Cardiff's goal difference is also so poor that they actually they need 7 really. So there's that. That's not even considering Luton and Plymouth, who I'm going to assume won't pick up 9 points from each of their final 4 games that they would need to stay up if Stoke got to 48. So there you go. It looks like Stoke are nearly there. It would take something ridiculous for them to actually go down after this result. It must be pointed out they have got 4 very tricky games remaining. And I would be feeling very nervous if they hadn't beaten Cardiff. But now, if I was a Stoke fan, I'd be feeling very relieved about their current position. And Justin, you were just saying on Thursday's show, weren't you, that you thought Stoke was still a side in your bottom 3. I'm guessing that's not the case now?
No, it isn't. I think with that, I was probably being a little bit stubborn to what I was saying sort of pre-international break. But I think you realise how bad Cardiff are. Didn't see Luton losing, which I think has really had a significant impact on what we're seeing at the bottom of the table now. And obviously Plymouth clawing their way out. Oxford pulling away, Portsmouth getting an important point, and Derby actually looking okay. this has changed things massively. And again, it's just how big of a 3 points this is for Stoke. Because not only is it 3 points, that's important, but it's 3 points between them and the team third from bottom. And that's even bigger. That's even bigger. But yeah, just the standard of performances have increased massively. So yeah, just can't see it now. Can't see it.
You just mentioned Luton Town, Justin. Their 5-game unbeaten run came to an end after they were beaten 1-0 at home by Blackburn. 3 reviews for Blackburn. Dave on our Patreon says, didn't expect that. Michael says, we actually won. Jack says, a pleasant surprise. For Luton, Skeeter on our Patreon says, absolutely piss poor. Yeah, Blackburn were down to 10 men for the final half hour of this game and still got the job done, which is amazing considering their recent form. I absolutely loved Yuki Ihashi's finish for the goal. That was absolutely gorgeous. Shout out for Teo Asgard as well, nearly scoring goal of the season for Luton in this one. But overall, a result which goes completely against the form book because, of course, Blackburn were winless in 8 heading into this. Luton were unbeaten in 5. So a surprising one, but also a significant one for both these sides.
Yeah, I think from a Luton perspective, it's hugely damaging because this was a very winnable game. Blackburn have been absolutely awful, haven't they, under Ishmael? And I think if you sit back and allow Blackburn to play a little bit and hit them on the counter, it's a good blueprint to get 3 points, and one that a lot of teams have found fairly easy in recent weeks. So for Luton to lose the way they did was quite poor. But this just felt like a flat game from their perspective. They struggled to dominate sort of physically. I think that was a big swing because, the simplicity in which Luton have been approaching games has really helped them. And it just felt like Blackburn's game plan sort of nullified that a little bit. And, the basics were won by Blackburn, which sort of gave them the onus here. So, yeah, hugely damaging one for Luton. As I say, it's significant in the context of teams above them picking up points.
Yeah, well, as you say, it's significant because it leaves Luton 3 points from safety and, again, much poorer goal difference than the teams outside the bottom 3, so they actually are more like 4 points from safety. Plymouth level on points with them again, which isn't exactly helping things, but perhaps more significantly, Luton have obviously been on this unbeaten run and just looked like they were building up some momentum, Justin. So losing to a team bang out of form like Blackburn were is a big, big blow. And you wonder what effect it might have on their momentum going forwards, Justin.
Yeah, no, one thing I want to bring into that conversation is Elijah Adebayo being injured for the rest of the season. Well, for a considerable amount of time because he'd done his ACL. Now, the reason why it's important to bring that into the context of this chat now is that off the ball, he's so important for Luton. And I know we can argue that in the final third and inside the box, he's been pretty useless. But the way he sparks attacks just by pressing, the way he gets the ball forward and carries the ball forward and really, really defends from the front from a Luton point of view, it's massive. It's hugely important. He does it really, really well. Probably arguably one of the best in the division at that. He's tireless. He's smart with his press. He's a good footballer off the ball. And I think Luton being without that now for the rest of the season, and we saw the physical change in the game here. I think losing Adebayo is that big, is that significance? And yeah, okay, he's not going to score a lot of goals between now and the end of the season, but he's going to propel Luton forwards. And him being out of the team, I think, is massive.
Yeah, well, looking at the big picture, momentum was key for Luton to have any chance of staying up, wasn't it? You looked at the table and were like, they're a fair few points behind, but they are one of the form teams down there. So if that is potentially going out the window now, then they are in deep, deep trouble, aren't they? Because they're going to need at least a couple of wins to stand any chance of staying up. So they will be hoping this is just a bump in the road, but confidence has been pretty fragile amongst this Luton team all season. So it could be a very, very damaging result. They have got an absolutely gigantic game on Good Friday away at Derby. They would go level on points with them if they win. But on the other hand, I don't think it'd be overdramatic to say Luton would be on the edge of relegation if they lost, Justin. That's probably about right, isn't it?
I'd probably say all but down, which is pretty much what you said, but phrased differently. So yeah, I completely agree with
you. Thank you.
But it's true though, isn't it? Because when you're losing to a relegation rival, it's like I said with Cardiff and Stoke, it's not only you're missing out on 3 points, but it's 3 points between you and one of the nearest competitors in that bottom 3. It's just so significant. So Luton, it's a must win for Luton. It's a must not lose for Derby. I think that's the difference, the big difference down there.
Yeah, and a draw doesn't really help Luton at that stage either, does it? I think whether it's a must win or not, or whether they're all but down, depends a lot on how Hull get on against Coventry tomorrow night. But yeah, it's pretty much as big as it gets for Luton, that game next Friday, whatever happens in the Hull game tomorrow night. An injury time equaliser from Rob Atkinson saw Portsmouth draw 2-2 at home to Derby County in another relegation 6-pointer. 3 reviews for Pompey. North Stander says nervy huge equaliser. Andreas on our Patreon says Atkinson. Yeah, the reason I say that is because he had an interesting game, did Rob Atkinson. In the final 20 minutes, he scored both of Portsmouth's goals, but also scored an own goal. So sort of a hat-trick for him. But the thing that made me laugh, Justin, was the equaliser. I say laugh. I laugh in hindsight. At the time, I was absolutely bloody fuming as a Derby County fan. But the winner, or the equaliser rather, is such a Sunday League goal to concede.
Yeah,
it's a big hoof up the pitch from a free kick.
I think that personified the game. It felt like a Sunday League game, with the greatest respect to both of these two teams, because it was wild. There's so many fouls, there's so many loose tackles. There's some good football, some shit football on display, and I think the goals that were scored were also very, very Sunday League. That Rob Atkins one, you are right. It's just a lump in the box, and Rob Atkins, defenders don't move quick in the box. They've got to run onto the ball to generate the momentum to get the ball into the goal. But the fact that he's come from, again, sort of unmarked, from a Derby perspective, it's criminal. From a professional footballer perspective, it's criminal. And he's managed to get it in. So John Eustace was quite pleased with the performance, but I sort of come away from that thinking, Derby were relatively poor. I thought Portsmouth impressed me a lot more than Derby did.
I'm not sure. I don't think either team particularly stood out to me amazingly. But ultimately, the bottom line is Derby will feel pretty frustrated about letting slip what would have been an absolutely gigantic 3 points. They would have moved up to 19th, jumped above Portsmouth and gone 3 points clear of the bottom three. I mean, we're just talking about how much trouble Luton are in now, and Cardiff to an extent as well. So if Derby did hold on to the win here, they would have been in an even bigger pickle, wouldn't they, Justin? So from Derby's perspective about their survival chances, this could be a costly goal to concede.
Well, exactly. And we saw it last week against Swansea. Again, it's sort of, I'm not blaming Kane Wilson here, but it's almost a ball to the sort of far post, and defenders unmarked, and I was blocking runs, and he's got an easy free header, which again with Derby's defence should not be happening, because they're very, very capable from defending the high balls, and they just weren't in this game. I think that was the key thing. They really, really weren't. Matt Clark made mistake after mistake after mistake. We're forgetting that Zetterstrom saved a penalty after 4 minutes because Matt Clark slipped and allowed Matt Ritchie through, who's in his mid-30s, for goodness sake. And then, Colby Bishop's. It's a good save from Zetterstrom. I think Derby have conceded more penalties than they've gained this season, by the way. It's quite ridiculous statistic. But again, it could be a damaging goal. And I think this is why, when you're giving games away like you did against Swansea, there should have been a draw. And obviously here, where there should have been 3 points, that late in the game should see it through. It just puts pressure on the games that are coming up. And when it says big 6-pointer against Luton, you don't want any pressure going into that game. You want to be a little bit pressure-free. And they're not. It's a big one.
Yeah, this result does power the pressure on that game from a Derby perspective, doesn't it? But look, there's still a lot of points to be won for the Rams, with them having to face 3 teams in the bottom 7 still, so that's all well and good. Derby are very well placed, really, because just 1 loss in 7, they're playing well, facing teams around them. Their fate is very much in their hands. They've just got to go and get the job actually done, which is a lot easier said than done, but it could have been a lot easier if they held on to this result. That's the big thing here. Justin, may as well ask this question because of how it's looking now, and I'm asking this after you got a fair bit of blowback on social media on Thursday for your bottom 3 in the your predicted bottom 3 for the remainder of the season. What are you saying now? Because it feels like a lot has changed after this past weekend.
Yeah, I didn't expect Luton to lose. I really didn't. I didn't see that result coming against Blackburn, especially in the context of the Blackburn going down to 10 men. that changes things massively. It really, really does. Adebayo getting injured, I think, changes things massively. Alfie Doherty's out for the season as well, which is sort of, he's been in and out of the season, or been out of the team all season with injury. But again, not having his left foot in that team is a huge loss still. So again, with Luton, it looks bleak. With Derby, I'm still on the fence with them because we see some really good stuff. Like the build-up for the goals was quite positive against Portsmouth, but the way they defend and switch off in games, they concede a lot of late goals. They have done all season. That they could really rue that. They could really rue that. So I'm not confident about Derby still. And Cardiff, again, when your manager's saying you might be sacked, sorry, you're down? Question mark. That's what it feels like. So yeah, I'm still between Derby and Cardiff.
So you're saying Plymouth, Luton, Cardiff/Derby as your bottom three?
I'm saying Luton. I'm saying Plymouth again. They've got to go again. It's the impossible's possible, but that possible is still very difficult to achieve. And then between Derby and Cardiff, that's what the final place is for me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a lot more positive on Derby than you are, and therefore I struggle to see anyone but this current bottom three. I think it may be starting to shape up to be just that, and it may even get to a stage where it wouldn't surprise me if we head into the final day of the season where relegation's actually sewn up. I think a big part of that is how poor the goal difference is for the three teams down there, which is a massive disadvantage for all three of them. But the teams who I were looking at outside of the bottom three to potentially replace any of those sides were Oxford and Stoke, who are now looking all but safe. So I just struggle to see who else outside of the bottom three is looking to displace any of those sides, because I just think they should be. They're better than the three teams down there, if we're putting it as simply as that. So yeah, I think it may end up being those three. I think that Derby-Luton game on Good Friday is absolutely massive, but if Derby win that, then it's looking very, very difficult for anyone else to be getting dragged into it. And Justin, we'll finish off by talking about a big game in the playoff race, which saw Millwall beat Middlesbrough 1-0 to keep up their late charge for the top six. 3-word review for Millwall. Greatest says Millwall playoffs now. The goal was scored by Camille Negley, who I wasn't too familiar with, Justin. Can't blame anyone else if they're not too familiar with him either, but he's actually Millwall's record signing. Reportedly cost around £3 million in January from Sparta Rotterdam. He's barely played since joining though, and this was only his fourth appearance, and he took his goal very well, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It was a great finish. Really, really good finish. Obviously come from the Eredivisie. Saw his record, and goal scoring wise and from attacking players, quite promising. He's got 5 goals last season for sort of 20 odd appearances. So there's quality there, which was exemplified with the finish that he put away against his Brush. I did read that he pulled up with his hamstring, he's out for the season, which, for a player who has been brought in for a fair amount of money and has just had a huge impact in a game, you're hopefully going to use him between now and the end of the season because the confidence is there. And Alex Neil's, trusting him, and he's now injured. That could be quite definitive, couldn't it? Between, for the top 6 race.
I was going to mention he came on as a sub in around the 60th minute, scored his goal, and then went off after just 20 minutes of play. I didn't realise he was out for the season, though. So it's quite the cameo, that, isn't it? It could be a huge, huge goal in Millwall's season. And it's an important impact, even though it's such a brief impact. But yeah, this win, of course, keeps up Millwall's astonishing form. It's 4 wins in 5 for them now. They needed to win here to maintain any chance of getting a playoff place, and they've done that. And they continue to be the one to watch, aren't they? They will be 4 points off the top 6 if Coventry win on Monday night, but Millwall just keep going, don't they? And their 3 games coming up are even kinder on paper than the 3 that they've just won, so you can't rule them out at all. Alex Neil is doing a cracking job, but I think now is a good time to do a brief overview of the playoff race, Justin, because we have perhaps been guilty somewhat of overlooking it in recent weeks with the automatic promotion race and the relegation battle both getting tasty. But it's finally poised, isn't it? Just 4 points separating 5th and 9th. If Coventry slip up tomorrow night, then it'll be looking wide open, won't it?
Yeah, I think, again, Coventry need to beat Hull, obviously. I think if they do, they can bank on that place being bank on their place in the top 6. But with West Brom, Borough, you got 2 teams there who have been vastly inconsistent, haven't they? I know Borough sort of turned around their form, but to go away to Millwall and have a fair amount of their game but not really penetrate too much and then come away with defeat, disappointing. You've got to make sure those games aren't losses. You look at the amount of draws they've had. Only 9 draws this season, Middlesbrough, which isn't a lot in the grand scheme of things. It just shows that they're losing too many games. And obviously with West Brom, obviously winning at the weekend's massive, but they've been on a huge poor run. Millwall have got momentum. And that is the key thing at this stage of the season. It doesn't matter if you're if you're poor in the first 5 or 6 games of the season, if you're coming into the final furlong, if you like, in a good stride, that counts for a hell of a lot. It really does, and it counts for a hell of a lot when you actually get into the playoffs as well. So this Millwall team don't look like they're stopping. They really don't.
Yeah. You just wonder whether too much of the season has gone, whether they've left it too late. That's the only question you'd ask, isn't it? But you are right, because Coventry, if they do win against Hull, that sort of does take the wind out of the sails of the playoff race a bit, because a 4-point gap between 6th and 7th isn't obviously as juicy as it looks right now. But it is worth mentioning Coventry still have to play West Brom and Middlesbrough, which adds a bit of intrigue. And if Millwall's form continues as well, that will be interesting. Obviously, right now, Bristol City and Coventry are well in the driving seat, but a lot could change in these remaining games. So, fingers crossed, we have some drama to come. By the way, it's Bristol City v Sunderland on Friday, and as things stand, they'll be playing each other in the playoffs. So, another game just to keep an eye on there. Justin, it's now time for the polls. This is the part of the show where we give the listeners 3 questions on Twitter, because we want to get their thoughts on everything to do with the Championship. So, the first question we asked was this: do you think Sheffield United will still finish in the top 2, yes or no?
No, it's gone.
91% of people said no. I think there's a very optimistic 9% of Sheffield United fans there who think it may be Chris Wilder and his bot accounts that he's paid for, and who've tried to swing that his way.
His Nick Mill burner accounts.
Who will do better in the Championship if they both get there next season, Birmingham or Wrexham?
Birmingham, they've got the resource. Wrexham have got to have a complete change in their squad.
I mean, Wrexham also have the resources, come on.
They have the resources, but this is a big debate for another day. They have the resources, they have a good revenue, but they have an ageing squad that they need to turn around and make into a Championship one. Very difficult thing to do.
Yeah, we will have a discussion about that at some point, assuming Wrexham get promoted. But 83% of people said Birmingham, 17% said Wrexham. So very one-sided, that one. Not a bit more one-sided than I was expecting it to be, actually. And finally, what would you rather eat? Chocolate-flavoured poo or poo-flavoured chocolate?
What a horrible question, Ryan. This is a respected podcast.
No, it's not. What would you say, Justin?
Say poo-flavoured chocolate or chocolate-flavoured poo.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd rather not eat shit, to be blunt.
But if you had to?
Well, yeah. If I had to, I'd always eat shit-flavoured chocolate. I don't know.
Poo-flavoured... No, chocolate-flavoured poo.
Sorry, yeah. I'll raise the bar. I went too lowbrow. I apologise.
Not for the first time. Yeah, it's got to be chocolate-flavoured poo, hasn't it? Because chocolate's not very good for you anyway. But if you're going to eat something that's not very good for you, you may as well eat something that tastes nice, you know?
Yeah, but it could kill you.
Yeah, so be it. It turns out this may be one of the biggest questions we've ever asked, Justin, because it's finished 50-50. Wow.
It's a hard one. It's a horrible question.
That is huge. That is absolutely huge. I don't think I've ever seen that before at the time that we've been doing the polls on this show. So that is absolutely massive.